Pronti? Allora, buongiorno a tutti e grazie per la vostra presenza. Andiamo ad ascoltare una voce che viene un po' da lontano, perché è quella della dottoressa Alexandra Filonenko, che è ucraina, attualmente risiede in Germania, date le note problematiche che ci sono in questo periodo, e che vi parlerà di uno dei suoi argomenti, diciamo, preferiti, ossia la figura delle donne, delle dee. Your title? Perilous and Fair, bella e pericolosa. Vi ricordate che fu descritta così Galadriel, no? Ecco, bella e pericolosa. E questo bella e pericolosa può attenersi, insomma, può riguardare anche tante figure, sia del mito che della letteratura. E quindi, ma qui partiamo dalle antiche dee, dalla madre, che è bella e magnifica, ma ha anche una faccia diversa, no? A volte terrificante. E belle e pericolose sono anche le fiabe, sono anche certe figure del ciclo arturiano e così via. I present you Alexandra Filonenko from Ukraine, and she will speak about this important subject, fair and perilous. The woman, the goddess, is magnificent, is fascinating, is charming, is powerful, and she has a perilous side sometimes, very often, very often. And this can apply to the great goddesses of the past or to the women of the Arthurian cycle. And also we can find hints of this conception in Tolkien's women. Buon ascolto.
Okay, can you hear me? The first question which I would like to ask you is how well you understand English. Fine, yeah? Because there is a translator, but the paper is really long, and unfortunately we won't be able to translate just everything. Okay? So the other my question is how many of you are acquainted with Tolkien works, but not only with The Lord of the Ring and The Hobbit, but with the Silmarillion at least? No. So then I'm going to talk about characters you have no idea about, but maybe it will kind of like inspire you to read these books. Though I must warn that the Silmarillion is not an easy read for people who like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, but still I do hope that my talk will inspire you just to delve into that book. Okay, so the title of my talk today is Perilous and Fair, Dangerous and Beautiful, in simpler words, the great mother figures and sovereignty goddesses in Tolkien legendarium. It is a widespread and already stereotypical opinion among both scholars and readers that Tolkien female characters do not play an active role in his stories. This situation can be in part explained by the fact that only 2 Tolkien's books have received a universal readership. The Hobbit, which lacks in female characters almost completely, and The Lord of the Ring, which features only 3 more or less prominent female characters and a number of mere glimpses and mentions. Yet, the Silmarillion, the Unfinished Tales, and the many volumes of the history of Middle-earth provide quite a number of female characters of incredible strong will, vigor, wisdom, and action, or irrelevant and action, or reveal a more powerful and active side of already known heroines, like Galadriel. You know Galadriel only from The Lord of the Rings, but she features in other narratives, and she's quite a different character from what you know about her from The Lord of the Rings. What also many critics underline, that though Tolkien follows traditional views that assign separate spheres of activity for men and women, and his secondary world can be called a male-dominated universe, his fictional characters often reveal both masculine and feminine qualities, and on occasions even challenge gender stereotypes. I will talk about such a character as Luthien. She does challenge gender stereotypes. It is difficult to expect a different situation since Tolkien, besides Christianity, based his secondary creation on mythological and epic traditions of the North, Old Norse, Anglo-Saxon, and Celtic mythologies predominantly, in which the ideal of femininity differs from our modern understanding of the concept. Yet, it doesn't mean that these female characters lack in power. This only means a different kind of power. As Melanie Rawls rightly points out, quote, in terms of power and creativity, the feminines of Arda are the equals of the masculines and sometimes surpass them. Two of the greatest works of air are the creation of feminines, Varda's stars and Yavanna's two trees. You probably saw these two trees in the new TV series. Among several couples, the wives surpass their husbands in power: Melian and Thingol, Luthien and Beren, Galadriel and Celeborn, end of quote. And today, we are going to discuss Tolkien female characters of this particular kind. So, this epithet, perilous and fair, was first coined by two American researchers, Janet Brennan Croft and Leslie A. Donovan, in their edited volume of classical and new essays on the role of female characters in Tolkien's legendarium. The title of this book was Perilous and Fair, Women in the Works and Life of J.R.R. Tolkien. And it perfectly reflects the complexity and ambivalence of Tolkien's heroines. In the foreword, they write, quote, certainly Tolkien's primary female characters are fair in ways identical to those of earlier fantasy heroines. They are beautiful, unblemished, cautious, and kind. Nevertheless, many of these women are also perilous in ways earlier literature generally attributed to villainous or evil women. Although such female characters typically require the aid of male heroes, it is equally significant that the male heroes require the efforts of these women to achieve their victories. End of quote. Do you need some time to translate?
Yeah, do I translate it?
Yeah, just like summarize, please.
Ok. Allora faccio un riassunto di quello che ha detto, se è utile. Praticamente è un'opinione comune stereotipata che soprattutto nelle opere di Tolkien non ci siano personaggi femminili degni di nota, o comunque che soprattutto nello Hobbit e nel Signore degli Anelli hanno solo delle menzioni. Invece nel Silmarillion e nella storia nel History of Middle-earth ci sono tantissimi personaggi femminili che hanno che hanno potere, forza, saggezza e che sono assolutamente delle eroine in tutti i sensi. Praticamente quello che viene sottolineato è che le opere di Tolkien seguono uno schema molto tradizionale, quindi è anche molto diverso dal ruolo della donna come lo intendiamo nei giorni nostri. Però questo non significa che le eroine femminili manchino in forza, ma semplicemente che hanno una diversa forza. Ad esempio Yavanna e Varda. Tra appunto le coppie ci sono molte volte, in molti casi, in cui le donne sorpassano i loro uomini in forza e potere, ad esempio Luthien e Beren e Galadriel e Celeborn. E oggi appunto si parlerà di questo tipo di personaggi nelle opere di Tolkien.
Okay, thank you so much. So, moreover, quite often Tolkien tries to compensate the destructive action of the male heroes with the wise and constructive behavior of his female characters. Or, if the need arises, the heroines take the action and the weapon in their own hands and usually achieve better results than the men do. Such a fierce and authoritative patriarch as Fëanor is balanced by a true matriarch in the person of Galadriel. Tolkien calls her, quote, the greatest of the Noldor except Fëanor maybe, though she was wiser than he, and her wisdom increased with the long years, end of quote. And while Fëanor perishes quite early in the First Age, Galadriel lives till the beginning of the Fourth Age and sails to Valinor in all her glory. Even Tolkien's dark powers are balanced on the axis of male-female. Morgoth is paired with Ungoliant, Sauron with Shelob. This gender equilibrium is observed throughout the entire legendarium. Thus, I propose to look at Tolkien's female characters through the lens of two concepts that present female power in all its diversity, which partially might explain why we are so fascinated by these remarkable heroines. These two concepts are the Great Mother archetype and the sovereignty goddess. Further, follow a bit of theory, but I will try to make it not too boring. You can translate.
Allora, praticamente nelle opere di Tolkien spesso si cerca di compensare le azioni distruttive dei maschi con la saggezza e le azioni costruttive delle donne. Molto spesso le eroine prendono proprio in mano l'azione e molto spesso raggiungono anche risultati migliori degli uomini. Per esempio, uno di questi esempi è la persona di Galadriel, cioè la figura di Galadriel, nel senso che Galadriel è in contrapposizione a Fëanor, cioè Fëanor purtroppo muore quasi all'inizio della prima era, mentre in realtà Galadriel vive fino quasi all'inizio della quarta e va a Valinor. E il dualismo maschile e femminile è anche, si può anche vedere in Morgoth in contrapposizione con Ungoliant e Sauron in contrapposizione con Shelob. Quindi c'è un equilibrio in tutto il legendarium di Tolkien. E adesso si parlerà della figura della Grande Madre e della dea sovrana celtica.
So we start with the Great Mother archetype. It's kind of like a more difficult bit of my theoretical framework, but I will try to make it as clear as possible. And I hope that this scheme, which I hope you can see, will help you to understand what I'm talking about. So Tolkien drew on many mythological traditions in his own mythopoeia. Mythology, in its turn, is believed to be rooted in the collective unconscious of humankind, while mythological images have their foundation in the archetypes. An archetype is a primitive mental image inherited from the earliest human ancestors and supposed to be present in the collective unconscious. The archetype of the Great Mother is the manifestation of the feminine principle in human psyche and underlies many female mythological and later literary images. Jungian psychologist and philosopher Erich Neumann, to whose research the Great Mother and analysis of the archetype I will be referring in my today's talk, underlies that, quote, the feminine appears as great because that which is contained, sheltered, nourished, is dependent on it and utterly at its mercy. Nowhere, perhaps, it is so evident that a human being must be experienced as great as in the case of the mother. End of quote. In other words, the feminine seems to be basic and essential source of the most profound kind of power over life and death. Moreover, because it is such an all-encompassing archetype, it contains features of both feminine and masculine, benevolent and threatening, good and evil. According to Neumann, the Great Mother archetype can be manifested in three forms: the Good Mother, who contains all positive elements; the Terrible Mother, the embodiment of all the bad elements; and the Great Mother, who is good, bad, and make possible union of positive and negative attributes. We all have encountered all these three manifestations of the archetype in myth and fairy tales, and most of the most fascinating female characters embody the variation of an ambivalent great mother.
Yeah. Ok, quindi l'archetipo della grande madre. Innanzitutto l'archetipo è un'immagine mentale primitiva che si suppone che sia presente in tutte le coscienze collettive. L'archetipo della grande madre è proprio la manifestazione del principio femminile nella psiche umana e diciamo sottolinea come molte eroine mitologiche femminili appunto riferiscono a questo archetipo. L'archetipo femminile è così grande e importante perché praticamente la madre, la figura femminile è la fonte del più profondo tipo di potere, il potere sulla vita e sulla morte. La grande madre, tra l'altro l'archetipo della grande madre contiene in sé sia elementi buoni e cattivi, come in una specie di appunto sincretismo, unione. Ci sono fondamentalmente tre figure della grande madre. La prima è la madre buona, che contiene tutti gli elementi positivi. La seconda è la madre terribile, che è l'incarnazione di tutti gli elementi cattivi del mondo, e poi c'è la grande madre che è sia buona e cattiva allo stesso tempo, è un'unione di queste caratteristiche.
Thank you so much. So, how does an archetype influence us? Neumann argues that it happens simultaneously through direct and indirect psychic experience of the archetype. The direct experience is realized through dreams, visions, and the workings of the imagination. The indirect psychic experience projects in the world primarily as figures of gods or other supernatural beings, so people may perceive them as really existent. Thus, the famous dance of Tolkien's wife Edith in the Hemlock Glade must have triggered in Tolkien the experiencing of a certain aspect of this archetypal feminine principle on both planes. At the indirect presence of something supernatural in the person of his wife, and at the direct psychic experience in the form of the upsurge of imagination, which led him to creation of one of his most outstanding and stunning female characters, Luthien.
Okay. Allora, ci sono due modi in cui si può percepire questo archetipo della grande madre. Uno è tramite l'esperienza diretta, che viene effettuata tramite sogni, visioni e il lavoro dell'immaginazione, e uno indirettamente, e fondamentalmente è la proiezione mentale che hanno gli umani sugli dei, quindi esseri soprannaturali che noi percepiamo come realmente esistenti. L'esperienza diretta di Tolkien, che appunto gli ha fatto venire l'idea della grande madre, o comunque appunto grazie al quale nei suoi lavori è presente la grande madre e sua moglie, appunto la moglie di Tolkien, perché lei incarnava questo archetipo femminile di qualcosa di soprannaturale, e soprattutto è stata l'ispiratrice di molte delle sue opere di immaginazione, in particolare nel personaggio di Luthien.
Thank you. Moreover, the Great Mother archetype can be realized in the so-called elementary and transformative character. If you look at this scheme, you can see this like axis, which show like good, bad mother and anima. They just like to use this concept in psychoanalysis. Like bad anima with minus, and anima with plus is kind of like the good anima. So, and they also can be like elementary, which tend not to change, let's put it simple, and as transformative, which earth changes in the world. It's kind of like, but I will explain it a little bit more in detail. The elementary character tends to hold fast to everything it produces and never let it go. Like some mothers tend never let their children become independent, controlling them and suffocating them with their obsessive care. Everything belongs to it and remains subject to it. It gives birth, but divorce in direct or indirect way. It protects, but it also brings death. The transformative character, on contrary, instigates change and action, movement, independence, and growth, like those mothers who love and support their children, but teach them to be independent and self-sufficient. Yet it doesn't mean that elementary character is bad, while transformative character is good. Each of these characters can be polarized from totally negative to totally positive, depending on the circumstances in which such archetype manifestation takes place. The influence of each character can be experienced as harmonizing or destructive. In its destructive aspect, the elementary character is realized in the terrible devouring mother, like evil stepmothers from fairy tales. In Tolkien's legendarium, it is represented by such terrifying female characters as Ungoliant and Shelob. And we should take into account Tolkien's own early childhood experience when he was bitten by a poisonous spider. He was still a toddler, but somehow probably this experience influenced him. That's why these spiders appear at all. At the same time, Melian, who created the magical girdle to protect Doriath, reveals as a positive aspect of the elementary character in its tendency to surround, hide, and protect. The same ambivalence can be found in the great mother figures of transformative character. For example, in Galadriel, who is an ambivalent heroine whose desire to adventure and independence brings both great disasters and great achievements.
Allora, ci sono, diciamo, nell'archetipo della grande madre ci sono due elementi. Il primo è il carattere, diciamo, elementare, che tende praticamente a trattenere e a non far sviluppare l'azione, come ad esempio alcune madri non tengono a trattenere il loro bambino ed evitare che diventi indipendente e praticamente lo soffocano con le loro cure ossessive. Questo da una parte protegge, ma dall'altro porta comunque alla morte, porta delle cose negative. Il secondo elemento è l'elemento trasformativo, che è esattamente l'opposto, quindi ispira cambiamento e azione per far diventare appunto il bambino indipendente e autonomo. Però questo non significa che i due siano o totalmente buoni o totalmente cattivi, perché non c'è una polarizzazione, ma si intrecciano. Infatti a seconda delle circostanze può prevalere l'elemento o armonizzante o distruttivo. Per esempio è chiaro che nelle fairy tales, nelle fiabe, l'elemento della matrigna cattiva è palesemente un elemento distruttivo, quindi della madre terribile. Nelle opere di Tolkien questo è rappresentato da Ungoliant e Shelob. Allo stesso tempo però Melian, che appunto crea la cintura magica che protegge Doriath, rivela anche un aspetto positivo in quanto protegge, però nello stesso tempo anche nasconde, e quindi questa ambivalenza è chiarissima in Galadriel, che è un'eroina ambivalente perché ha un desiderio di potere, quindi distruttivo, ma questo porta anche a dei grandissimi risultati.
Thank you so much. So we see that it is a very complex archetype. Yet the core of the Great Mother archetype lies the concept of containment, like in the center of the scheme, and which is nuclear to the feminine principle in general. And it's symbolized by any kind of vessels, from body to cavern to the chalice or even to the grail. The further associations with the Great Mother aspect are given birth or releasing, development, rebirth, and immortality at the highest level. Thus, the good Great Mother is symbolized through vegetation. It's very important that trees, flowers, and fruits are very important symbols. And in many religions, the sacrificial or gifts to the goddess are flowers. Even here in Catholic part of Europe, I very often see flowers in front of the Virgin Mary. Yeah. Probably it's kind of like this tendency. Yeah, and this archetype also releases from the darkness of unconsciousness and leads through growth to light and consciousness. It also provides protection and nourishment. Neumann gives his examples like goddess Demeter and Isis and the Virgin Mary in her motherly aspect, because we know Virgin Mary has this divine aspect. The function of the terrible Great Mother manifests through a holding fast, fixating, ensnaring, making small or not letting grow, devouring and dismemberment, sickness, death, and even extinction. Here the exemplar figures, according to Neumann, are goddesses Kali, Hecate, and Gorgon. The positive transformative character of the good mother, or as he called it, positive anima, develops from the same center of containment, but towards giving, transformation, sublimation, at the highest level, ecstasy as an enlightening experience, inspiration, vision, and wisdom, as is represented by Muse, Sophia, and the Virgin Mary in her divine aspect, who kind of like urges people to become better. The negative transformative character of negative anima reveals as rejection or deprivation. It's like man loves a woman, but she rejects him. He does something to deserve her love, but it never works, and he may perish in these efforts. And it's also disillusion, ecstasy as a destructive experiment. For example, when people get drunk, yeah? Madness, impotence, and stupor. And these states are brought about by such figures, according to Neumann, as Lilith, Circe, and Astarte.
Allora, l'archetipo della Grande Madre è sicuramente complesso. Il nucleo di questo archetipo è praticamente l'immagine di, tra virgolette, un recipiente, che può essere un corpo, una caverna o anche il Grail, come si chiama? Praticamente l'associazione con gli aspetti della madre positiva sono, diciamo, dare la vita, quindi sviluppo, appunto nascita e immortalità a livello più alto. Molte volte la simbologia associata al concetto di madre buona è la vegetation, non mi viene la parola.
Plants.
Thank you. Piante. Ok, non mi veniva la parola. Vegetazione. Quindi alberi, fiori e infatti molte volte ci sono appunto fiori vicino agli altari, proprio per dimostrare la nascita o comunque lo sviluppo della vegetazione. Esempi in questo senso sono Demetra o anche la Vergine Maria. Invece dall'altro lato l'aspetto terribile della Grande Madre si esplica in cose che diminuiscono, quindi che non lasciano crescere, oppure cose che divorano, o addirittura a livelli estremi malattie e morte. E gli esempi di questo sono Cali, Ecate e Gorgone. L'ispirazione massima è rappresentata dalle muse, quindi la parte positiva è rappresentata dalle muse, invece la parte negativa appunto è rappresentata da elementi come Lilith o Circe, che portano l'uomo alla pazzia.
So, in addition, a whole range of attributes is associated with the Great Mother archetype, in particular those from the realm of nature, such as caves, trees, and certain animals. The symbolic realms of the Great Mother are earth and water, vegetation, and animal life. That's why Nenya is the ring of water. This is the magical ring of Galadriel. This symbolism is all-encompassing, but the most important are vessels that contain, including caves and any hollows in the earth or in the trees, houses and items of clothing, especially veils and cloaks that conceal, water bodies and liquids, including bodily liquids, in the first place blood, water creatures, vegetation symbols, in particular flowers, fruits, trees, and their derivatives, such as things made of wood, certain animals, and of course birds, because birds live in the trees. All the above mentioned provides a wide interpretational base to reveal the intrinsic power of the female characters. A mythological or literary character structured by the complex archetype of the Great Mother is inherently polyvalent. It can contain good and bad, elementary and transformative features to a greater or lesser extent. Moreover, even when the creator of such an image consciously tries to produce a distinctly benevolent or evil character, the other aspects of the archetype may shine through the surface of the image and make it more multifaceted and more interesting.
Allora, il simbolo principale della Grande Madre, i due simboli principali della Grande Madre sono la terra e l'acqua, quindi la vegetazione e la vita animale. In particolare l'acqua ha un significato fondamentale e tutto ciò che è collegato al liquido, quindi anche comunque i liquidi corporei, fondamentalmente il sangue. Poi creature d'acqua, è molto importante la vegetazione. Nell'ambito degli animali sono molto importanti gli uccelli, in quanto appunto vivono sugli alberi e fanno parte della vegetazione. E in ogni caso bisogna sempre ricordare che c'è una polivalenza, non sono appunto, non c'è un dualismo. Un personaggio può contenere elementi sia buoni che cattivi, e anche quando un personaggio è o buono o cattivo non è mai interamente uno o l'altro, perché a volte torna alla superficie una caratteristica che è dell'altra appunto, se è buono viene alla superficie il cattivo e viceversa, e questo è diffusissimo in Tolkien.
Okay, and now we switch to, and it will be shorter, to sovereignty goddess figure. The sovereignty goddess is one of the realization of the Great Mother archetype, predominantly in its good and transformative aspect, though negative features can be represented as well. The concept of sovereignty goddess comes from the Celtic tradition, where the idea of kingship is built on the following tenets. First, physical perfection of the king as a foundation for the cosmic order, providing harmony between the natural universe and king's people. For example, if the king loses arm or hand, what happened to Maedhros from the Silmarillion? He cannot be king anymore because he is not valid for that. He's not perfect. The second, the king's special relationship with the forces of the other world. And the third, most important for us, marriage to woman personifying the sovereignty of his kingdom, who is often of otherworldly origin or believed to be so. Such a marriage may be considered as a sacral marriage to the land goddess in the person of a woman. In Celtic tradition, a king is a queen's husband, not vice versa. In the Irish mythology of one of the most prominent figures is certainly Queen Maeve, whereas in Welsh tradition, the closest correspondence is Rhiannon. Such a female character possesses specific magical powers and actively tests men who seek to become kings, often requiring them to kiss or even engage in sexual intercourse. It's in Celtic tradition, not in Tolkien. Endows her preferred male with power, gives shrewd politically enabling advice, and in some narratives returns to reclaim power of sovereignty from an unfit king. We can see the reflexes of it in behavior of Melian when Eleuthingol falls under the influence of the Silmaril and starts behaving not as a rightful king, and Melian withdraw her kind of like wise advice from him. So, do you summarize?
Yep, ok. Allora, qua si parla della figura della dea sovrana ed è una delle personificazioni della Grande Madre, però diciamo, la dea sovrana viene dalla mitologia celtica e praticamente si basa su tre pilastri. Uno, la perfezione fisica del re, che praticamente fonda l'ordine cosmico e dà l'armonia al mondo. Il secondo è la relazione del re con le forze del mondo ultraterreno, e il terzo è, questa è una cosa che potrebbe avere anche degli addentellati in Tolkien, il matrimonio con la donna che personifica praticamente la sovranità di questo regno, che spesso ha origini ultraterrene. In particolare nella mitologia irlandese questo personaggio è personificato dalla regina Med, e nella tradizione gallese è Rhiannon. E normalmente queste eroine femminili hanno dei poteri magici e spronano l'uomo che vuole diventare re a passare una serie di prove, e se il re diciamo, non è degno di governare potrebbero anche tornare e togliere l'autorità al governo.
What also seems important in these characters, sovereignty goddess characters, is that their age is of no importance. They can be even married previously and have children. For example, Maeve was married 9 times. And these women also are not supposed to be virgins. And it doesn't diminish their value. This may be due to the fact, because as the creatures of other world, they do not age or lose their beauty with the passing of years. Remarkably, all Tolkien's elven princesses who choose mortals for their partners are much older than these male characters, but still look young, which is normal for the elves. Though they have not been married before and certainly do not have children, which is not possible for Tolkien being a Christian, a Catholic Christian. Thus, the elven maidens and one Maya, in the case of Melian, in Tolkien's writing are likely to be a kind of reinterpretation of the figures of the sovereignty goddess. They belong to the elder children of Ilúvatar, those who marvel and protect the beauty of the world. And they are inseparably connected to the fate of Arda. They are of an immortal magical race of the elder that came first, and thus they are truer and more legitimate lords of Middle-earth, which they see as their homeland and their kingdom by the right of the firstborn. Therefore, a human here, in order to claim the right to the same land and to establish line of human kings, must enter into a relationship with an elven maiden, as we see in several stories from the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings. It never works the other way around, though. And as a human maiden cannot marry an elven prince because she doesn't possess this sovereignty power. She's kind of like of lower magical standing to him. Tolkien does not allow such unions, though there is at least one instance when a human woman yearns for an elven husband, namely that of Andreth and Aegnor. But this relationship was not going to work. A similar failure awaits Eowyn, since Aragorn has to marry Arwen, not only because of his great love to her, but also in order to become a rightful king of the land. So.
Okay. Allora, diciamo che nella tradizione celtica diciamo che non è importante né l'età della donna e né se sia o meno vergine o se ha già avuto bambini precedentemente, in quanto sono praticamente delle figure soprannaturali, quindi sganciate da queste cose pratiche, diciamo. Esattamente, cioè, il parallelismo in Tolkien sta nelle principesse elfiche che scelgono dei mortali anche se loro sono molto più grandi come età, anche se, visto che Tolkien era cattolico e cristiano, non accettava l'idea che queste donne avessero già avuto bambini precedentemente. Le donne praticamente le donne elfiche sono la reinterpretazione tolkieniana della figura della dea sovrana, perché provengono da una specie di quello che può essere un al di là, quindi sono i primi bambini, i primi figli di Ilúvatar, e sono una razza magica immortale, quindi l'eroe umano, per avere il diritto di reclamare il suo regno, deve entrare in una relazione con una donna elfica, in quanto la donna elfica può dare a lui l'autorità per diventare re. Non succede mai il contrario, cioè una donna umana non può sposare un uomo elfo perché sono le donne a possedere il potere sovrano e non gli uomini. C'è un esempio in Tolkien di questo, Andreth e Aragorn, ma comunque una relazione che non andrà a buon fine. Lo stesso fallimento, diciamo, incontra Eowyn innamorandosi di Aragorn, in quanto Aragorn è innamorato di Arwen ed è praticamente Arwen è un po' quello che legittimerà Aragorn a diventare il re di Gondor.
Okay, I just want to ask the organizer how much time I still have. So,
10 minutes.
10 minutes only. Okay, so. Well, then let's just, I just wanted to talk about like four characters which represent the great mother figures and partly sovereignty goddesses, and I will try to do my best in 10 minutes, and maybe you will summarize then what I will.
At the end?
Yeah.
Or I summarize shortly?
Well.
Do you prefer to talk and I summarize at the end, or we can stop?
So maybe I will just like not read. So I will just read the introduction. So I propose to concentrate on the three essentially motherly figures from Tolkien's legendarium that embody the positive aspect of the Great Mother archetype. It has the good mother, procreator and protecting Vala Yavanna, magical and foresighted Melian the Maya, and powerful and stunning Galadriel, who are mothers, in case of Yavanna, of all biosphere of Middle-earth, and queens in their own right. In other words, they exercise biological, parental, and sacral royal power. It is important to emphasize that these three characters are deeply connected with each other, representing three of the most important aspects of the Great Mother archetype: creative Yavanna, protective Melian, and active Galadriel. Moreover, Melian acts as a vivid embodiment of sovereignty goddess to her elven husband Eleuthingol, as being a creature of the otherworld, mightier and wiser than any elf. She grants him power over land of Middle-earth, creating a kingdom for him with her protective magic. Galadriel also serves as sovereignty figure to Celeborn, but her royal power is more obvious than his. She decisively overshadows him. That's why this aspect is less important in the structure of these female characters. So she is in the first place the Great Mother. And well, now I will probably summarize what is my main argument. I just want to show that Yavanna, who is the queen of the earth, she is kind of like divine figure in Tolkien world, who is responsible for, let's say, biosphere. She creates all plants, all animals, all living things. And what is also important, she creates the first sources of light, the two trees, which produced the light before the sun and moon appeared. And which is also important, she kind of like can put the sleep of Yavanna just to stop the development of the biosphere when there is such a need. When Morgoth destroys Middle-earth, she puts the entire biosphere in this sleep, and the divine powers kind of like go to Valinor, where they stay while the Middle-earth is lying in the shadow. But Yavanna kind of like remembers about it. And probably she sends Melian as her emissary, just to take care at least of the part of Middle-earth, while the rest must stay in Valinor. And probably I will read this bit about Yavanna. She is very often represented as a tree, as a tall tree with a sun in her branches. And it's a very important image of the vegetative life and of this like production of light, of any kind of light. And I also can conclude that Melian, she is surely the embodiment of the good Great Mother, not terrible. This aspect of terrible, only a little bit can be seen through this sleep of Yavanna. And it is very interesting to mention that the light, which seems to be the most precious thing on Arda, was created by two females, Varda's starlight and the light of lamps before the trees, and the light of Yavanna's the two trees. Moreover, the light of the sun and the moon, being the fruit and flower of the two trees, thus also comes from Yavanna. In addition, the stronger light, the sun, is again in the care of a female creature, Maya Aryan, who is mightier than her male counterpart, responsible for the moon. If in the timeless halls the light is in Iluvatar's sole possession, in air it is in the hands of female powers. Here again, Tolkien keeps the equilibrium of gender. So maybe you can summarize this bit about Yavanna.
Okay. Allora, appunto faccio un riassunto sulla figura di Yavanna. Allora, Yavanna rappresenta in tutto e per tutto la madre buona, quindi la figura buona della madre. È magica ed è dotata di chiaroveggenza, preveggenza. Allora, Yavanna praticamente è la creatrice di tutto ciò che è vivo, quindi della vegetazione, e soprattutto è la creatrice della luce. Infatti spesso viene rappresentata fisicamente come un albero con del sole che filtra tramite i rami. Quindi è la creatrice della luce. Allora, la cosa interessante è che la luce viene creata, è la cosa più importante che esiste in Arda, ed è creata da due donne, quindi Varda, che è appunto la luce delle stelle, e la luce di Yavanna dei due alberi. La luce del sole e della luna viene anche da Yavanna. E in aggiunta a questo, la luce più forte che c'è, ovvero il sole, è creata dalla Maya Arien, dalla Maya Arien, che è molto più forte della sua controparte maschile, che è responsabile della luna. Quindi fondamentalmente il potere della luce è nelle mani delle donne.
Yeah, and then Melian. I propose to read Melian as elementary good mother. She is not active. She just comes to Middle Earth because it's interesting. She is of light but of shadow as well. She sins in Valinor. She sins at the time when the light of two trees are combined, but she loves the deep shadows of the great trees. And she goes to Middle Earth to kind of like protect probably what is still worth protecting. And to do that, she finds a husband, a suitable husband, one of the great elven chieftains, Elva, and she kind of like captures him and ensnares him and creates kingdom for him, just to create kind of sacral center in Beleriand to which all who need protection kind of like can escape. And we see that during the entire history of Beleriand, they do find this protection. Many characters do find the protection in Doriath. And it's quite an interesting situation that she also produces with her husband, who is not allowed to go even, he goes to work probably one time and then he stays in his enchanted kingdom because Melian needs him there. And together they produce one of the, I read her as the greatest hero of Middle Earth. Some researchers will not agree with me, but for me, Luthien, the daughter of Melian and Eleuthingol, is the greatest hero because she is kind of like really the ultimate sovereignty goddess figure of Middle Earth, because with her start the line of the greatest human kings. This honor she shares with another elven maiden, Idril Celebrindal, who marries human man Tuor and becomes the mother of Earendil. But technically, she is the greatest hero of Middle Earth. If we look at her achievements, they are astounding and not beaten by anyone else. By her magic and courage, she defeats Sauron in his stronghold and delivers Beren from the imminent death for the first time. Actually, he was captured there because he went to perform the quest to win Luthien, but then Luthien had to rescue him because he got in trouble. Then she performs the most difficult part of the quest for the Silmaril. She aids her hero, but actually does the biggest part of the job. During this quest, she defeats Morgoth in his stronghold, being the only creature on Arda beside the Valar who ever does it and survives. We know that the great warrior Fingolfin also challenged Morgoth and even wounded him, but he got killed by Morgoth. And she escapes death, saving Beren for the second time. When Beren manages to die, with her sinning, she goes to Mandas and persuades this, let's say, god of death, and through him, Eru Ilúvatar himself, to change the laws ruling the world, and for the third time delivers Beren from the ultimate death. He actually died. And here we encounter the reversal of the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. But now Eurydice, it's kind of like reversal of gender roles. Eurydice, it's Beren. He's taken to Mandas. And Orpheus, the person who performs music, who sings and just inspires the god to release her beloved. It's Luthien. Ultimately, her deeds begin the undoing of Feanor's evil and the downfall of Morgoth in Middle-earth. So if one still insists that Tolkien did not create enough female characters, I would argue that Luthien alone can make up for this lack. And I don't know, probably I don't have time left, yeah? So probably on this optimistic note that the Luthien is the greatest hero, I would stop. And if you're interested in my research, you can find me on academia.edu. And there is a paper about these great mother figures and the paper about sovereignty goddess. It's called the Celtic Life Triangle. And there I show how these magical elven females really grant power to their mortal husbands, and through them they become the great kings and continue their line. And we have this, in the end we have actually Aragorn, who is the descendant, actually, of Melian and Luthien. The same as Arwen, who becomes sovereignty figure to him. And Galadriel is a very interesting person. Actually, I would say that if they were more clever, these people who created the Rings of Power TV series, they could have developed this ambivalence of Galadriel in a more clever way, and it could have worked. But unfortunately, somehow they failed that, and it looks stupid, because Galadriel does have these changes when she's very active, transformative, and sometimes brings big evil, because she dragged her brothers to Middle-earth. They didn't want to go, to be honest, especially Finrod, who was a very wise, but he went with his little sister, and all of them perished there, the greatest elven kings and princes. But somehow she learns wisdom, especially when she stays with Melian in Doriath, and then she becomes the greatest magical creature, on par with Sauron, probably, in Middle-earth, and helps to kind of like bring him down. And when he finishes her task, when she goes through this evolution from a young willful witch and negative anima to the great good mother, then she can leave Valinor and go to, she can leave Middle-earth and go to Valinor, because she finished her task. So thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, you can translate now. It's my, for the people who understand English.
Okay. Do you need to, avete bisogno della traduzione? La faccia? Vado? Ok. Allora, partiamo da... Allora, Melian, sì, Melian, che comunque è un emisterio di Yavanna, è, diciamo, una dea misteriosa e oscura. Fondamentalmente il ruolo è anche di proteggere suo marito e sua figlia Luthien, e Luthien è una delle eroine più forti e potenti in tutta la Terra di Mezzo. Fondamentalmente Luthien sconfigge Sauron e salva Beren quando viene imprigionato, e fondamentalmente fa la maggior parte del lavoro, cioè la quest di Beren fondamentalmente la porta a termine Luthien, e salva Beren dalla morte 3 volte. Anche nell'ultimo caso in cui Beren è proprio morto, lei va nell'oltretomba e lo riporta in vita, come i miti greci. Allora, sì, Luthien da solo è un'eroina, quindi se qualcuno ha qualche dubbio sul fatto che le eroine in Tolkien non sono forti e potenti, diciamo che Luthien da sola potrebbe esemplificare esattamente l'opposto. Le donne elfe, fondamentalmente, appunto, ritorniamo sul discorso che le donne elfe danno il potere agli uomini di regnare, quindi gli danno l'autorità. Ultimissima, appunto, eroina da analizzare, Galadriel, che è proprio molto ambivalente, cioè a Galadriel è sia buona che cattiva. Diciamo che il suo personaggio subisce delle trasformazioni lungo la storia, anche perché fondamentalmente molto longeva. All'inizio trascina suo fratello nella Terra di Mezzo e poi lui morirà. Quindi in questo caso è la parte della dea madre distruttrice. Poi il personaggio appunto si evolve, diventa la più grande creatura magica in tutta la Terra di Mezzo, e quando porta a termine il suo compito finalmente parte per Valinor. Ok, se volete poi approfondire la parte di Galadriel, you want to say on Galadriel?
So Galadriel, I'm just like showing the slide now. Actually,
Okay.
she becomes like the successor of Melian. She also, in the end, she creates this like sacred center again, to which everyone who needs advice and some magical help comes, and the Fellowship of the Rings come to Lothlorien, and she becomes the mother of the entire elven nation, actually the last elven nation in the Middle-earth. And actually, through Melian, she is connected to Yavanna. I see these 3 female characters as the one big extended character of the great protectress of the land. Yavanna, Melian, and the Galadriel, when she learns how to become one, because at the beginning she's not so wise and foresighted. She's really strong-willed, she's really stubborn, and yeah, she's a really contradictory and ambivalent character, but she develops.
Sì, praticamente Galadriel è collegata a Yavanna e Meliar in quanto protettrici della terra, anche se inizialmente Galadriel non era così, poi quando la compagnia appunto arriva da lei prende sulle sue spalle questo ruolo di protettrice della terra e alla fine appunto diventa quasi una specie di divinità protettrice e creatrice.
Like triple goddess, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows this concept of triple god, three-faced goddess? So they represent that.
Ok. Ecco, adesso molto velocemente se avete qualche domanda. If you have any questions, very quickly, please. Lo immaginavo, sulle donne, per forza.
Sì, innanzitutto grazie per questa splendida relazione. Tra l'altro io amo molto Neumann e quindi sentirne parlare è veramente stato un grande piacere. E appunto a proposito degli archetipi di Neumann, si può essere corretto vedere anche in Galadriel qualcosa dell'archetipo di Sofia, soprattutto per il tema della preveggenza, ovviamente nell'ultima fase, cioè quando lei dà queste indicazioni alla compagnia e quando dice io non posso fare nulla di attivo ma posso darvi dei consigli, quindi si può vedere anche questo aspetto di Sofia.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the conference. The question is about the Galadriel, whether she can be considered an archetype of Sophia, especially in the last part of the story. She cannot take an active part, but she gives advice.
Yeah, actually, this is in my text, which I didn't manage to read. Sorry, people, I wrote too much. Actually, I see her in the end. She is like good mother, great good mother, and the positive anima, because the Sophia figure, because she inspires humans, hobbits, elves, and even dwarves, and gives this advice and help. We see it even in the film, where she doesn't have so much less time than even in the book, but still we can see that she is this positive anima who is represented with this Sophia concept of the wisdom, like cosmic wisdom. So she has like positive aspects at the end of her magical career, let's say.
And she nourishes.
Yes,
she's a nurturing.
She's the mother and
nurturing
positive anima
figure,
because she
yeah.
inspires.
Mm-hmm. And now another short question.
Ok, quindi sicuramente sì, lei è l'archetipo della madre buona. No,
Ho chiesto.
Lei ispira tutte le razze della Terra di Mezzo grazie appunto a una specie di saggezza cosmica.
So she's in the upper part of the scheme at the end of her development.
Listen, another question, very, very shortly. Goldberry, is she a power girl?
You know, yes, she is. For me, she's also like Melian figure. She is in a hidden place, and she kind of like also like tries to keep the equilibrium of that place. And again, it's a sacral center, those smaller one, to which our characters can come and be rescued or have rest and be nourished and helped, actually. So she's kind of like in the shadow of Tom Bombadil, but still, again, she is probably the sovereignty goddess to him, but I should look deeper into this
or
character.
is she an anticipation of Galadriel?
Yes, she's kind of like, can be seen like that.
Non hai capito? E ho detto Goldberry, è una ragazza di potere. Goldberry, Maccador. È una ragazza
Sì, no, ok, Goldberry sì, la moglie di Tom Bombadil. Ah, ok, la moglie di Tom Bombadil. Sì, sì, allora fondamentalmente sì, perché tiene l'equilibrio del posto dove abitano, quindi in un certo senso sì.
E io ho ancora aggiunto, è un'anticipazione della figura di Galadriel, è come un anticipo, una caparra.
Okay.
Yes, and she's elementary good mother, Goldberry. Though unfortunately we don't have much written about her in the book, but still we can analyze and see that she works in the same scheme. There are more characters like that in Tolkien. Actually, he structures many of them as the Great Mothers. Thank you for having me here.
We are three women. We speak about women. Oh, today is our day.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you.